We're back on America's Forum. Joining us here, Francesca Page. Francesca, good to have you.
Good to be here.
And stateside, John, a major Second Amendment case before the Supreme Court that we're going to talk about right now. A divided Supreme Court siding with the Obama administration, ruling that the federal ban on, quote, straw purchases of guns be enforced. So that ruling stands even if the final buyer of the gun is legally allowed to own the firearm. The ruling intended to prevent people from buying guns for the sole purpose of then turning around and selling them to another person. Joining us now, Lesley McKinney, attorney for the organization called Florida Carry. Lesley, we thank you for your time. Thanks for Skyping in and joining us now on America's Forum.
Pleasure to be here, JD. Thank you.
Well, it's all in the definition. You know that as a legal expert, as one who practices law. Give us the legal definition of, quote, straw purchases.
Before yesterday, that would have been very easy to do. I also, besides being an attorney, I'm a federal firearm licensee, and a straw purchase is essentially someone purchases a firearm with the intent that it's possessed by somebody else. In other words, they are not the person when they sign that Form 4473 that is intended to be the owner of the firearm. There's usually an implication that it is for an improper purpose.
Lesley, how did this case begin?
Apparently, Abramski was a former police officer, and he was able to get a discount from a local gun dealer. His uncle asked him to purchase a Glock 19 handgun for him, sent him a check for the money. Abramski went in, filled out the paperwork from the licensed dealer to purchase the firearm. That's a 4473. Question 11A on that form asks if you are the actual purchaser of the firearm, and he marked yes, knowing full well that no, it was going to be his uncle that the firearm was intended for. And that's what started this problem.
Well, Leslie, these straw purchases are a huge part of gun shows around the country. We showed some video here of folks milling around these gun shows where folks can go and bring their sidearms and maybe sell them to somebody else. Do you think this will have, we talked about the specifics of this case with an uncle and trying to sell a gun. Where do you see this case having its biggest implications? Is it at these gun shows?
I don't think it has so much to do with the gun show, because the ATF regulations really only apply to licensed dealers. And licensed dealers have the same rules whether they're in their shop or at a gun show. Gun show, a lot of the issues are revolved around the private sellers, private property rights. What can you do with your own property? The impact of this case, concerns for me, are what it will do as far as gifting firearms and the issues and the loopholes in the law now that do make transfers legal between people. Furthermore, I believe in the broader sense, it has ramifications on regulatory issues. We have the law that Congress wrote, and we essentially have a regulation and an interpretation that's created a felony. And that's pretty apparent in Scalia's dissent.
But bottom line, if I'm going to buy a gun for, and give it to somebody for a nefarious purpose, there's nothing to stop me from doing that because I can just lie on the bill of sale, correct?
Technically, yes. I would like to emphasize, though, that a law-abiding citizen would not do that, regardless of what the Supreme Court stated today. There is an admonition on the Form 4473 that warns you that you will be making truthful statements, and if not, it is a felony. The question is, and what the Supreme Court addressed, is lying in that check block a felony?
And as we take a look at this, Lesley, there is always politics that surrounds any legal decision, and people who watch the Supreme Court very closely, a whole lot of Second Amendment advocates are startled by the decision and the closeness of the 5-4 vote. For example, the executive director of Gun Owners for America, Larry Pratt, had this to say, quoting now from his statement: "The government's out of control and all three branches are united against the people and the Constitution. So the simple question is this, Lesley: was this decision, in fact, a blow to our Second Amendment rights?
I believe that most federal firearm licensees were adhering to the straw man rule to begin with. I don't think a lot changed there. I think it's not only a blow to the Second Amendment rights, but it is a blow to all who believe that laws are made by Congress as opposed to regulations. That's what this is focusing on. Essentially a regulation, and something that didn't need to be included on a government form was, and created a felony by doing so.
Well, so, there are implications here. Lesley, are you more concerned about what might come next? That this might open the door to additional restrictions of this nature? Because kind of what we're hearing from you is that this doesn't really change anything, but there is kind of a symbolism here in relation, and based on that statement that we just JD just read on the screen, that there's an erosion going on here of these rights.
Well, the courts tell us what the law is. Congress makes the law, the courts tell us what it is. Those who were acting, the licensees who were concerned in keeping their licenses, would not have transferred to a straw man who answered no on question 11A. And there's really no way of knowing if someone's answering 11A truthfully other than their signature attesting that they are. I believe that there is an erosion in the fact that this is not clearly stated in the law. The ATF has made it an issue by regulation, by putting it on its form. So the question becomes, what's next? And I think Scalia in his dissent said, what if he asked if he's wearing an orange shirt? Does that make it a felony?
Lesley McKinney, attorney for Florida Carey, we appreciate your time and your insights. Thanks so much.
Thank you, JD.
So our British cousin is here. There are restrictions in the UK, but a lot of knife attacks over there.
There are, but the thing in the UK, we've got some of the toughest gun restrictions. Even in France, it takes up to 6 months of paperwork. But the irony is, there's some of the biggest gun manufacturers: France, Belgium, Italy, even the United Kingdom. So.
And what's striking here about this, like some of the other gun laws passed in state legislatures, New York, is that they don't do anything to really deal with the issue, because if somebody wants to get a gun bad enough, they're going to go ahead and get it.
When guns are outlawed, when guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns. That's more than a bumper sticker slogan. We're coming right back.
Hello, I'm Tom.